What's going on, guys? MurderInc Raid here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video. With the Battle Pass coming shortly to an end, I really want to talk about Wurlim Frostking. He can be an incredible asset to your progression as far as endgame performance, so I really think it's important to highlight him. More specifically today, I want to talk about Clan Boss. On top of Wurlim, I will also be highlighting Septimus now that his AI has been fixed, as well as Sandlashed Survivor. For the first Clan Boss test, I decided to run Alton as lead, Skull Crusher instead of Valk, because I know a lot of people don't like seeing legendaries, they don't have them. They often ask me to use more ordinary champions. I don't really agree with that as far as a showcase goes, but I'm going to do it for this video. Of course, we're going to have Wurlim on the team, Dracomorph, and Sandlashed Survivor. Now, this team is running the 179 to 171 speed I've gone over in the previous video. It is one of the variations that you can run. So as you can see, there is some setup. What I really want to highlight with this strategy is, if you don't know already, Sandslash has the ability to extend the duration of buffs on your team. On top of her passive, which if you take a certain amount of damage, it gives ally protection to your team and puts a block damage buff on her. Now you will see in this run that Skull Crusher is going to be getting stunned. I did this intentionally so that you can see how much the strength and extension and Sandslash increased duration can really help your run, even with a huge mistake like having your counterattack desync from your entire run. The first thing that comes to mind, what can Wurlim do for your team? Not only does he have a decreased crit damage, which if you don't know already, it does apply to the clan boss. So it's a form of bad luck protection. Everyone gets that unlucky crit on a champion that completely destroys them, ends your run a few minutes early. This reduces the damage that the crits do to your champion. So high probability that not only will you survive longer, but if you are using a counterattack champion like Skull Crusher with ally protection, he will take less damage from the crits because it does transfer to the shared damage. Now on top of that, he provides the entire team with an increased crit damage buff. This can be absolutely gigantic in adding damage for your entire team. So not only is he good and does he have a kit that helps himself, but he is now improving the damage of the other 4 members of your team. This pairs very strong with any champion as long as you build crit rate on them, which should be the end game goal of anyone doing any difficulty on the clan boss. Now if you don't know this already, Wurlim Frostking does have very good multipliers as far as damage goes. You will see in this video how he is doing a lot of damage despite not being built for damage. I will be going over the gear I used and the builds I used for these champions at the end of the video, so you can look for that. On top of adding solid damage, the highlight of his kit, even though his A2 is very strong with the crit damage like I was just explaining, is the strengthen and the defense up buff. There is no buff better than strengthen right now as far as mitigation goes. You will see here how strong it is to have, even though he has a 4-turn cooldown, and I did not speed tune him so he can keep the 4-turn on an even path with the clan boss, I used Sandlashed Survivor to do just that. And you will see the difference between them not having the buff on and the damage they take with the buff on. It's pretty much night and day, and it's kind of incredible to see. This can absolutely extend your runs a lot further than you had anticipated. So if Wurlim is a champion that you have received or you will be getting from your battle pass, I strongly recommend that if you don't have any very strong options as far as clan boss goes, you can absolutely feel free to put your books into him. He is very important to book because he does have reduced cooldowns on the booking, and unless you get someone like a Dracomorph and Alton, even an Alton and a Wurlim together, Alton still works without books, so that's not as huge of a deal. But Dracomorph, Valkyrie, Martyr, outside of those champions, Wurlim is a very, very strong champion, and I personally use him in my main Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss team. I do run Valkyrie, as I said before, instead of Skull Crusher, but I felt like it was really important to highlight Skull Crusher here, since a lot of people have access to him and not these other legendary counterattack champions. Since we are on the topic, and I did say I would talk about Sandlashed Survivor, I did shoot a champion spotlight video on the Sandlashed Survivor, so if you want to know more in-depth detail about the champion, make sure to go and check that out. But for now, what I can say is she's very strong, especially when you have someone like a Skull Crusher on your team. Everyone knows that he has the unkillable buff on him for 1 turn. The second turn is usually the wipe condition, So what Sandlashed Survivor can do is when everyone takes an incredible amount of damage, granted it's off of cooldown, she does have the option to overwrite Skull Crusher's shared damage on everybody and apply her passive, directing the damage to herself with the block damage debuff that can absolutely extend your team's run, leading to a higher damage key. Outside of that, probably not ideal, but if you wanted to, you could use her as your leader. I know a lot of people are running Tay-Rails or Alton like I'm using here, Sepulcher Sentinel. Those are champions with an attack down, so it's a bit detrimental if they don't have a block debuff or some type of cleanser to strip the buff. Sandlashed Survivor does have a very strong extension cooldown. However, sometimes it doesn't really matter if it extends on the first or second AoE, as it will still prolong the important buffs throughout the duration of the fight. She can absolutely be an option to take the threat away from your attack down champions, because I know everyone's gone through a period where they have wiped early due to an attack down not landing on the boss multiple turns in a row, leading to a full wipe in your team. Now let's go over the recap of the damage here. As we can see here, 6 minutes and 33 seconds, 26.2 million in a key. So obviously we are well within our 3 key territory here. We are using Alton and Dracomorph, but outside of that, we aren't using what the community calls S tier champions, which is a totally different subject where I don't think there's such thing as a tier list. I think it's really bad for the game, but that's a topic for potentially a whole other video, so we will steer clear of that. Going over the recap, we have 4.7 million damage from Alton, 4.3 from Wurlim Frostking, 9.7 million from Dracomorph, 4.8 from Sandlashed Survivor, 2.5 million damage from Skull Crusher. Now you will see from later on that I do have pretty decent gear on these champions, so this key might not really stand out to you as far as how much damage it does. One thing to consider is Skull Crusher was getting stunned, and not every champion was getting a counterattack every single round. I have seen many keys suffer from this before. The damage looks like 13 million, 15 million, 17 million, so the fact that this can still 3 key with your counterattack like Skull Crusher, getting stunned, not being able to apply counterattack, and as you can see from the video, I did not pause and realign anything. I left it straight on auto because that was the point of this video, to show Sandlashed Survivors extension benefits as well as Wurlim Frostking and what the strengthen buff can really do to allow you to survive into the later rounds. So now that we've gone over the first composition, I would like to go over the second run with you guys. This one was a lot of fun. For this I used Alton as the leader, Skull Crusher, Wurlim, Septimus instead of Sandlashed Survivor, and Dracomorph. Now in this run I have everything tuned to where Skull Crusher will not get stunned unless there's very bad luck somewhere down the line. So I don't think in this video he ends up getting stunned. It's possible towards the end, I really don't remember, but outside of that, I do want to highlight Septimus now that he is fixed. His damage is absolutely incredible now that he's using his A2 on cooldown. For those of you who don't know, Septimus A2 deals more damage than Cold Heart and Royal Guard's enemy max health hit, so it's very huge, especially being an extender as a clan boss champion. The only problem that I personally do have with Septimus is I feel like his base defense is a bit low for not being a poisoner. Most poisoners have very low base defense. This champion, especially for a legendary, it's a lot lower than I personally think it should be. However, his kit is very strong, and with the AI change to him now, I really can't complain too much about Septimus because he's an absolute asset for any team going forward. So if you have Septimus, you haven't been using him, you said I have to manual to use him, now is a perfect time to take him out of the vault, throw some good gear on him, make sure he has 100% crit. That is very important and will absolutely increase the value of Septimus overall, and it will improve your damage by more than you would think. And of course, give him accuracy. I know a lot of people ask all the time, do you need accuracy for his passive? You do need accuracy to extend the debuffs. One problem people have with extenders is there's a lot of RNG involved. Since I have a champion like a Dracomorph who is supplying 4 poisons with a 3-turn duration, it is not actually huge having Septimus in this team composition. It definitely helps, don't get me wrong, but his value as an extender isn't as high. They don't have a champion applying a poison on an A1 every single round in repetition. If I had a champion that was really Hoping for Septimus to extend 1 poison, 2 poison, 3, hopefully stacking to 10. The threshold of damage would be a lot wider than it is with a Dracomorph. So if you do have a poison like Aothar or Dracomorph, this is great news for you if you want to use Septimus in your team. Now, one important thing to touch on now that we have this composition with Alton getting stunned, since he is getting stunned and I don't use a cleanser, I also do this strategy in my main team. This puts Alton defense up on a 4-turn cooldown. So if you saw at the start of this run, what I did was I used Wurlim's Strengthen buff on the second AoE, and I used Alton's on the first AoE. What this does is it helps keep at least the defense up, active for most of the fight. More importantly, during the 2 AoEs, sometimes this can get skewed and you will notice a difference right away in damage when this does happen. So if you are going to use Wurlim on your team and you have a champion like Steel Skull, Lightsworn, anyone with a 4-turn cooldown, or someone with a 3-turn cooldown like Alton and you don't have a cleanser so it will be moved to a 4-turn cooldown, definitely stagger using these cooldowns so they never overlap on the same turn. That is going to be very important as far as making sure your team gets the most out of the survivability cooldowns that Wurlim and anyone else can offer. Alright, as we can see here, we did have Skullcrusher get stunned at the end. That was a wipe condition. I wasn't watching close enough to see what made this occur. However, obviously this run could have gone longer if that stun did not occur. So once again, we are well within our 3 key Ultra Nightmare territory. This run was a lot quicker at 5 minutes and 10 seconds. The breakdown in damage was 4.3 million damage from Alton, 4.2 from Wurlim Frostking, 10.3 from Dracomorph, 5.3 from Septimus, and 2.2 from Skullcrusher. Now, even though I used Skullcrusher in this video, I do want to talk about the normal team I run. The normal team I run are both of these variations with a Valk instead of a Skullcrusher. And depending on the affinity, I either use Sandlashed Survivor, Septimus, or Tyrant. If you know anything about Tyrant's kit and you've seen my champion Spotlight, his HP burn skill is not used in auto under 70% health for the clan boss, so obviously I try to use him above 70%. Now that Septimus is fixed, I use Septimus below. If it is a punishing affinity, I will use Sandlashed Survivor to further increase the survivability of my team and to take the threat off of Valk from getting stunned. Now, as a quick comparison, we saw 26 million from both keys. With Wurlim Frostking and Tyrant, as well as Valkyrie in my main composition, my threshold per key is 39 million to 46 million per key on Void Affinity. If I use Valkyrie, Wurlim, and Septimus, my threshold is 44 to 50 million per key on Void Affinity. So all in all, as you can see here from this example, even though I didn't use my A team, I really wanted to show you what it would be like with Skullcrusher being the most common counterattack champion that people have. Wurlim Frostking is a fantastic legendary. His damage mitigation with your team is unparalleled compared to any other buff in the game. The only thing better that I would personally rate is Valk Shield, since you can stack such high values of defense and the shield can really extend your survivability a lot longer. Obviously, with that in mind, the reason why I use Wurlim and Valk together, I have 2 of the strongest cooldowns in the game. So now, as promised, I am going to go over the stats of the gear really quickly. Obviously, everyone is using lifesteal gear. Wurlim stats are 46,000 health, 3,600 defense, 178 speed, 91% crit rate, 208% crit damage, and 200 accuracy. Next we have Alton, who is running 40,000 health, 4,100 defense, 175 speed, 88% crit rate, 241% crit damage, and 260 accuracy. Moving on to Dracomorph, we have 37,000 health, 4,000 defense, 181 speed, 43% crit rate, 138% crit damage, and 247 accuracy. For Septimus, I gave him 32,000 health, 3,700 defense, 180 speed, 98% crit rate, 168% crit damage, and 249 accuracy. For Skullcrusher, he has 56,000 health, 3,800 defense, 92% crit rate, 169% crit damage. And last but certainly not least, we have Sandlashed Survivor with 41,000 health, 4,300 defense, 177 speed, I went way over the top with 115% crit rate, 152% crit damage, so obviously her damage potential is much higher. She did do a decent amount for her output, but it can be absolutely higher if I gave her the 200% crit damage like I did Wurlim, or the 240 to 260 like I gave Alton. Alright guys, as always, thanks a bunch for watching the video. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much to my Patreons and everyone watching for supporting me. Appreciate the love. I know I am still procrastinating on the Hegemon video. I do intend to release that. I thought it was important to talk about Wurlim, because I had a lot of people approaching me saying he wasn't that good, and I said, what do you mean? And I showed him my normal team doing over 40 million per key using Wurlim. Now I have seen a lot of people say if you put the gear that I personally have on any champion and do well with them. However, of all of the legendaries I have, which at this point is over 80 legendaries, Wurlim provides me with the highest damage per key on Void Affinity, so it has nothing to do with gear. His kit is just that good. So I can't stress that enough. It's kind of a weak cop-out to say I'm only using him because I have fantastic gear. If I had fantastic gear having 80 legendaries, I could have used anyone in his spot. There was somebody better and they would outperform him. I have tested many keys and obviously I'm using the best that I can. If you enjoy my videos, you would like to see more, smash that like button, comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, my friends, peace out.